Let's hit, I don't know, 5 likes. If that happens, I'll be making a video on 5 different weird customers. Hey, so, getting 5 likes was supposed to be a challenge. I don't normally get that. In addition to that, this video that took me a total of an hour and a half got more numbers than videos that took me double digits. What? Genuinely, thank you all so much for the support. And I don't mean to sound like a broken record, but this genuinely does mean the absolute world to me that you guys loved my video. And basically any video that I've made. But getting into the actual video, all these stories didn't all actually happen the same day. But a disturbing amount of them did. Fast food jobs are one of the worst environments to work in. Period. It doesn't matter if you're a 50-year-old electrician making $5K a month from changing a light bulb, okay? Fast food and retail workers combined get hit with an insane amount of stress purely from the sheer amount of idiots we have to deal with daily. Also, working at a well-known sandwich shop that's also connected to a gas station does not help with the encounters that I get. And for some reason, I seem to be a magnet for the most excruciatingly difficult customers imaginable. I'm not exaggerating when I say this, but I'm the only one at my job who's had this many those people encounters in such a short time. There's this kid that's like 2 to 3 years younger than me who's also worked there for 9 months. And he's had about the same number of crazy customers that I've had in a month and a half. Which raises the question, what kind of people am I running into? Well, let me introduce you to customer number 1. Let's name him Gertrude. First of all, Gertrude looks like he could put a hole through my skull with a poke from his finger. He's tall, dark, and handsome, and also has some muscle to him. His girlfriend, on the other hand, was the exact opposite. Let's name her Whammin. Whammin was mostly quiet and kept to herself until it came time to talk to Gertrude about me. In front of me. Now sure, she was whispering so I couldn't really hear what she was saying, but she kept side-eyeing me while talking in his ear. And if you know anything about social interactions, that means they are talking about you. Anyways, Gertrude right off the bat had some kind of attitude. Someone stole his candy when he was a baby, let's be honest. I didn't say anything about it, but his tone and everything was just off. I think I was being a little bit too slow for him during the sandwich making process and asking him too many questions because he kept getting more and more agitated. He wasn't saying anything outright rude yet, but the aggressive tone was definitely there and building, you know? Eventually third shift came in, which meant I had to leave before I had to deal with another problem the next day. My coworker, let's call her Sam, came in and told me she was relieving me. No, not like that. And then Gertrude just loudly says, "Thank goodness, someone that'll actually get my food done." He did not say goodness, by the way. Now, I don't remember the exact words he said because this happened a month ago. And also, if you're doing the math, yes. This was within the first 2 to 3 weeks of me starting this job. So I look at Sam and said, "Are you sure?" with the "you do not want to deal with this guy" look on my face. She insisted, and she had also clocked that the guy wasn't really being the best of men. So I clocked out of work, then I waited in line because I was hungry. And who doesn't get hungry after their shift? And oh boy, did I have to wait forever for my food because apparently I wasn't the problem. Who figured? Gertrude spent an additional 6 minutes finishing his sandwich with a worker that had been doing this job for almost 4 years at this point. And then it moved to his girlfriend's sandwich. This lady, this person spent 15 minutes building a sandwich. How do you manage to do that? So after they spent about 30 minutes total ordering food, Sam asked if they wanted any chips, cookies, or drinks. They both said no. Gertrude then hands Sam a $100 bill. She takes it and says, "I'll be right back to break this." It took about 5 minutes to get the change because we have a machine on the gas station side that's basically like an ATM, but with 4-step verification. Meanwhile, Gertrude starts meandering around the store. He does about 3 laps around the chip rack. The couple talk while staring at the chips, and then he goes on his 4th lap around, and he grabs 2 bags of nacho cheese Doritos. About $3.50 worth of chips, by the way. He shoves one bag into his sandwich bag, and then the other into his hoodie pocket. Sam comes back and clocks the bag of chips in his hoodie. Before she could say anything, and as she was handing back the change, I asked, "Are you going to pay for those chips?" Gertrude looks at me and goes, "Huh?" And it was this kind of fake confusion you do when you know you did something wrong, pretending you didn't hear the question or that the other person is actually crazy. So I ask again, did you pay for those chips? He somehow looks even more confused. So I turn to Sam and asked, did he pay for those 2 bags of Doritos? She says, no, they didn't buy any chips. She then turns to the couple and says, I asked you if you wanted chips, cookies, or drinks, and you said no. So I followed it up with, yeah, he has one in his hoodie and another in the sandwich bag. And this man goes, oh, I thought these came with the sandwiches. What kind of Subway have you been that gives you free chips with the sub? So I said, you have to pay for those. And then he goes off, starts yelling at me. Sam cuts in and says, you either need to pay for the chips and never come back, or give me back the chips and never come back. Gertrude says, fine, and reluctantly hands her the Doritos. He's still yelling while he's walking towards the door, and then he brushes past me, and he whispers, I would have punched you. And I immediately replied, loudly might I add, and I would have called the cops. Then he storms out with his 2 sandwiches. His girlfriend stayed behind him the entire interaction, being an absolute wuss and not defending her boyfriend at all. She was completely quiet. Now, technically, I could have been petty. I could have followed him outside, grabbed his license plate number, and called the cops. But this guy seemed really angry. And if you know anything about people with extremely short fuses in America, you know I was not going outside. Not for $3.50 worth of Doritos. Also, if you're going to steal and risk a charge, why even steal Doritos? At least steal Cheddar Sun chips or something. Come on, man. Now you'd think this would have been the weirdest interaction that the store had to deal with from these two, and this one actually happened on the gas station side, so I didn't see it myself. But before we get into that story, I have a huge announcement. I am now partnered with Dubby. Dubby is a clean energy drink made to give you focus without the jittery peaks or low crashes. Dubby also does their absolute best to fit every single person's needs. Every tub has no sugar, maltodextrin filler, artificial colors or dyes, secret formulas or hidden ingredients, and is gluten-free. Look at all that junk. Every flavor they have made has never been made by another energy drink company, so you can guarantee every single flavor will be absolutely unique. Also, if you do the math like the geniuses you are, you will also figure out that from this $30 tub that gives you 30 servings, that comes out to $1 for 20 ounces of joy. That's cheaper than going to the gas station at 2 a.m. and grabbing a can there, or going to your local coffee shop and spending 8 times this. The best part, it's also made in the US of A, so it's not imported from another country, making it cost less. Because we all know money is pretty needed right now. And now, here's real life me actually consuming the drink, unlike Chris over there, unwilling to try anything his company makes. That tastes really good. They also have shakers, hats, hoodies, mouse pads, a flag, and even air fresheners. So you too can rock this sick graffiti shaker and wear their amazing looking merch. And because they love their consumers so much, they also give you a little extra flavoring packet. How nice of them. So the next time you either need a refill on energy powder, you work out, or need energy in any situation, Dubby has your back. Just go to dubby.gg or click the link in the description, get your tub or merch, and use code KAIPON for 10% off your order at checkout. Thank you, Dubby, for partnering with this channel. Now let's go back into the worst customers I have dealt with yet. I only heard about it from Sam when she was working during that fateful day. So one day, Wayman comes in with a group of friends, and from the way Sam described it, they were acting like a loud group of what seemed to be drunk moms. I don't know if they were actually drunk, and I don't even know if they were actually moms, but that's the exact vibe that they gave off during Sam's retelling of the story. The group was walking around the store, grabbing whatever they wanted. Eventually, they all brought their items up to the self-checkout, and as Wayman was walking towards the self-checkout, she looked directly at Sam's eyes, and then moved over to the self-checkout, which waved a red flag for Sam. Multiple of them, and women in particular, found a very nice, delightful, very healthy, and very essential bag of mini donuts. Truly a critical grocery item. The girls walked over to the self-checkout and started scanning their stuff. Now, for some reason, our gas station has self-checkout machines, which I'm still convinced was some kind of PR move by the company. Because putting a self-checkout in a gas station sounds like the world's easiest way to lose money. Anyways, Sam suddenly gets that spider sense employee feeling that something isn't right. So she checks the POS system, basically the computer we use to ring y'all up. And she noticed something is missing. The mini donuts aren't anywhere in the carded items list. So Sam keeps watching. And she sees Wayman lift the donuts slightly higher than normal over the scanner. You know, just enough so it looks like she scanned it. But she didn't. Sam, with the hawk-eyed vision she apparently has, immediately noticed. And also the scanner never beeped, which is a dead giveaway. So Sam tells Wayman that she needs to either pay for the donuts or she is never welcome here again. Wayman immediately gets butthurt and starts causing a scene. Then she storms off and leaves everything at the self-checkout station half-bagged and unpaid for. And apparently Wayman took the "you can't come back here" rule very seriously. And by very seriously, I mean she probably walked out there thinking something like, "Yeah, okay, whatever you say, boss man." Because a week later, she came back with her boyfriend. And guess who got to deal with that situation? But that still wasn't the worst shift I had yet. Because one day, 3 completely different people decided to test my patience this day. Customers number 3 and number 4 are paired together because they quite literally happened back to back. Happy days! Am I right? Right. I'm naming customer number 3 Terrence Fletcher, because this guy could have legitimately been the stunt double for the guy from the movie. He looked that similar. The only real difference was that this guy had that classic grumpy old man look. You know, the one where they look like they believe that the entire earth revolves around them. So I'm ringing someone up that's actually paying, and I'm cashing them out, when Terrence comes from around the corner from the gas station and grabs a cup. Now usually when you grab a cup that you need to pay for, you don't immediately go to fill it up. You wait in line to buy the cup first, especially if it's the only thing that you're buying. So my first thought was, oh, maybe he wants water and thinks he could just use one of the soda cups. So I say in the nicest tone possible, "Oh, do you want water?" I swing around, do a 180, and grab one of the free water cups. Terrence responds with something along the lines of, "No, I don't want water. I'm getting soda." And the tone he said it in kinda caught me off guard, especially because I was being perfectly nice. So I just go, "Oh, okay." So I turn around and put the water cup back. As I'm finishing ringing up the first customer, I notice Terrence is slowly creeping closer and closer towards the gas station entrance, sipping away on his newly found free drink. Now, the policy at my job is that if someone buys something from our side of the store, or even has it in their hands, they have to pay for that item first and take the receipt, so they have proof of purchase. Because technically, Subway and the gas station are separate businesses. So I finish the transaction just as he's starting to walk away. And I call out, "Sir?" Nothing. "Sir?" Still nothing. "Sir!" Even the customer I just rang up was trying to get his attention. But Terrence was living in his own little universe where he's the main character. So I go around the counter, I follow him towards the gas station side, and I say, "Sir, you have to pay for the drink before you can come over to this side of the building." And he immediately gets annoyed and says something like, "Yes, I'm going to grab a Snickers bar and pay for it over there, sir." Jesus, man. So I respond, "Well, we need to go back now because I can't have you over here with unpaid goods." So he starts muttering to himself while following me back. And as we were walking back, he sounded like he was getting really close behind me. So I start picking up my pace because if there's anything I know, people with short fuses and America don't mix well. For the second time, I don't care who you are, I'm not taking any chances with you. And as I'm starting to ring him up, he's berating me the entire time, talking about how stupid the rule is and how ridiculous this whole situation is. And I finally say, "Sir, it's just policy. I don't know what you want me to do." And at that point, he just gives up, leaves his partially drank Pepsi and unopened Snickers on the counter, and starts walking out. And as he's leaving, I finish up bringing up the drink anyway, and jokingly shout, "Your total will be $282. And he looks at me, then walks out the door. Now this is where customer 4 enters the story, and that's his name now. 4. So I'm sitting there looking at the unpaid soda and Snickers bar, trying to figure out what I'm supposed to do with them. I'm also visibly annoyed and confused at this point because something like this hasn't happened to me before. And suddenly I hear, "Hey! You have a new customer, bro. You could deal with that later." Now I wasn't gonna take that from someone who looked 20 years older than they actually were, so I slowly walked towards the back to tell my supervisor what just happened. And for some reason, she sounded annoyed at me too, which didn't exactly help my mental state at that very moment. She just groans, speed walks over to the counter, throws the cup away, and puts the Snickers back while I go to deal with 4. And let me tell you, 4 was being an absolute douche for absolutely zero reason whatsoever. And that's actually his new name now, Douche. Douche starts going on about how what I just went through doesn't really matter, and the only thing that matters is what he wants, because he's the customer. You know, very narcissistic energy. So at this point, I just respond with, yep, trying to get the transaction done. And then this man has the audacity to say, "Let's start over, shall we? How is your day?" That exact tone, by the way. I look him dead in the eyes with the stare that millennials say Gen Z gives people for no reason. For the record, this is the reason. This is the exact reason. It's for people like this to act so self-centered that all you can really do is look at them and hope that they realize what they just did and actually treat us like normal human beings trying to actually live life and earn money. So I reply, fine. Then I completely tune out the rest of his attempts at small talk. And honestly, if you're the type of person who snaps at workers and treats people like the insole of your shoe, why are you miserable? Did you not get enough attention from your parents or something? Did nobody ever tell you the word no in your entire 40 years of existence? Her name's Karen. I know. Super original. Someone should probably give me an award for America's most creative person. I don't know. Anyways, she walks in on the phone, earbuds in, talking to somebody. At first, I figured she would just hang up the call so she could hear me clearly. Or at the very least, turn the volume down. She did neither. Karen wanted a tuna footlong sub. So I start running her through the normal questions. What cheese? What bread? Not in that order. And as I finish scooping and spreading the tuna, she says, "Can I get more?" I say, "Okay." And I grab a teeny tiny little bit more, like maybe a sixth of a scoop. I wasn't even planning to charge her for it. I show it to her. Then she says, "No, a full scoop." Her exact words, "a full scoop." So I say, "Okay, that'll be extra, is that okay?" She replies, "Yes." So I put on a normal size scoop on the sandwich. Exactly what she asked for. And then right when I put on the sandwich, she says, "That's a bit too much, but okay." At this point, I'm thinking, well, you're paying for it anyways. Why would you not want a full scoop? But whatever, it's her choice. So I keep moving with the order. She gave me a hard time with the veggies, but it wasn't too much of an annoyance that I needed to put it into this video. But when we got to the register, I started to ring her up, and when I started to ring her up, the price is higher than she expected. Shocking, I know. So she asks, why is it this price and when it should be that price? And I explain, it's because you added an extra scoop of tuna. That scoop costed like 80 cents, by the way, before tax. So it might have been like 83, 86 maybe. I can't do math, okay? And everything you're about to hear was over 80 cents. Just as a fair warning, okay? She says, "I didn't ask for another scoop of tuna." And at this point, I was about ready to rip my brain out of my skull just so she could see the memory of her saying yes. I could just like imagine like a tiny little screen with the memory and like audio playing from somewhere, I don't know. But I kept my cool. Mostly. At least in front of her. She says, "I'm not paying for something I didn't ask for." I respond, "You asked for another scoop, so I gave you another scoop." She replies, "No, I didn't, and you're going to remake this if I have to pay extra." So I say, "But you asked for the extra scoop of tuna, and I said it was going to cost extra." And again, she says, "No, I didn't," but then she adds, "I heard you say it's going to be something. I'm hearing impaired, okay? I don't have my hearing aids in. No, that's not the problem. The problem is you're talking to someone on the phone with earbuds in, giving them 99% of your attention, while I, the person making your damn sandwich, is getting the remaining 1%. I start to say something along those lines, and then I realize this woman has a skull too thick for my thin words to get through. So I just say, fine, and I speed walk back to the start to remake the sandwich. Bread, cheese, tuna scoop. And then I hear, that's too little. Those are a full scoop, sir. I slowly look up, like the Willem Dafoe meme, and Karen is leaning over the counter, gripping the lid with her bony, cold fingers, which you're not supposed to be touching, because that's technically inside our zone. We're looking eye to eye at this point, and she goes, oh, go on. Continue. I'm just making sure you put in the right amount of tuna in each scoop. And the entire time I'm remaking this sandwich, so from the beginning, she's still on the phone, talking to the person that she's calling, commenting on everything that I'm doing, and talking bad about me, loud enough so I could hear every word, right in front of me, for maximum disrespect. She keeps correcting my scoops too, which I completely ignored, because they were the exact same. Like, if you looked at it, I scooped, I scraped like a little bit more off or whatever, and like I made sure I did that with every scoop, and she was still complaining about it, and she kept going on and on and on about it, and eventually I just snap. I give in, and I say, I've been dealing with rude customers all day. Please give me a chance to breathe. Give me some space. Every single scoop is the exact same. They are all the exact same. And I repeated it multiple times because she said herself she has a hearing impairment and wasn't wearing her hearing aids, as you know. A little malicious compliance on my part. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention something important. This happened on the same day I dealt with Terrence and Douche, and this interaction was about an hour before my shift ended. The other two were about 2 or 3 hours into my shift. And once I said that, she suddenly looked startled. Like she didn't expect me to push back after everything she put me through. And she goes, okay, I'm sorry. Like I was gonna snap her neck or something, which to be fair, I was. For legal and moral purposes, and because my lawyer told me to, I have not and will not follow through with any quote-unquote threats made in this video. Thank you. I finished stringing up the sandwich, and as she's leaving, she says, there. Wasn't that easy? After she left, the same kid, Chad, not his real name, but he is a Chad, told me I should just go sit in the back and cool off, because he was starting to see a bit of Bob the Tomato in my face, you know? And I feel like I could beat up Gertrude at this point, just to give you an idea on how visibly upset and stressed I looked. After doing a bit more prep and doing some dishes, I forgot that I left the sandwich over on the line. So I go over to the line, I grab the sandwich, I look at it, and on my way back, and I squish it like it was Karen's neck, and I toss it in the waste bucket. And after that, I chugged 5 cups of freezing ice water in pure rage, which surprisingly actually worked. It cooled me off. Since the other video did so well, I figured I'd treat you to a 6th story. So, you're welcome. I expect the same treatment back on this video. Deal? Good. Let's call this guy Old Man Gary. Gary is a very angry man. Every tiny minuscule thing makes him obscenely angry for no reason. And I mean every tiny little thing makes him mad. So imagine what happens when a guy like that walks into a fast food place wanting food. Gary walks in and demands a sandwich. So I start making the sandwich. Bread, cheese, meat, toast it. So far, everything is normal. Gary definitely has an attitude, but I just brush it off as old man syndrome. And trust me, it's real. This entire video is basically written proof that it exists. We get to the veggies. Gary asked for onions, so I put the normal amount of onions on the sandwich, which is about 0.75 ounces. Then he asked for more onions, so I add the normal amount of extra veggies you'd put on the sandwich. Then he says, I want more onions. So I add more onions. Then he says, I said, give me some onions on my food. So I add even more onions. At this point, there was already a mound of onions sitting on this guy's sandwich. And then he says onions. Or then he says, when I then he says onion. Dude, I can't. Dude. Okay. Then he says, when I say give me onions, I expect you to put onions on my damn food. All right. I heard you. So I grab a very full handful of onions and drop it on the sandwich. Congratulations, Gary. You now have an entire onion farm on your sub. We go over to the POS, and he then proceeds to pull a Terrence Fletcher and starts mumbling to himself. He gets very passive-aggressive with me. More aggressive than passive. At this point, I've had enough. So I say something like, I'm just doing my job. And that was apparently the wrong thing to say. Because Gary goes ballistic. He's just calling me stupid, saying that because I'm stupid, that's why I have a job like this, and I can only get a job like this. Just personal jabs just out of nowhere. So finally I say, you can leave. I do not want you here. Now during all of this, one of my regulars named Angel had walked in earlier while I was making the sandwich. And the moment Angel hears Gary say, you are stupid to me, he calmly tells Gary, hey man, you should just go home. You're not welcome here anymore. Gary completely ignores him, of course, so I finish ringing him up, I take his change, and firmly place it on the counter in front of him. I don't throw it, like I have it in my hand, and then I just, not really slam, but like a tone below that. And I say, have a good day, sir. Gary responds with, don't throw my money at me. And I say, I didn't. I firmly placed it there. We go back and forth for a second. Then Gary finally yells, well, f*** you! And I respond with, goodbye. After Gary leaves, Angel tells me that what Gary did was completely wrong. But he also said something that actually stuck with me. He said, yeah, but you only had to deal with him for like 10 minutes. Gary has had to deal with his own attitude his entire life. Angel and I ended up talking about it and laughing, talking about the entire interaction from start to finish. And now every time he walks in, he asks me, so, anybody yell at you today? And weirdly enough, almost every single time he comes in, there's been someone acting like that. Thankfully, it's calmed down a lot lately, but for some reason, those kinds of customers always seem to show up on the days Angel arrives, which is honestly confusing. But whatever. And honestly, Angel's right. I only have to deal with people like that for a few minutes. They have to deal with themselves forever. Glad I'm not them. I think I would actually go crazy and be the reason asylums get reinstated.
Light work, no reaction.
That's it for the stories. Sorry about the long video. I didn't really expect it to be this long. I expected it to be maybe 10 minutes. So if you're here now, thank you for watching the entire video and listening to me rant. Just let me know what I could have done better, or tell me how you would have reacted. And I am still a small creator, so please, let me know what kind of videos you'd like. I'm open to anything.